we are talking about human-in-the-loop and self-driving labs. Let's start from the back. So self-driving labs, why do we need those in battery research? So I guess most of us, at least the experimentalists, are familiar with our experimental coin cells. And they, of course, include electrodes and electrolytes. However, these materials usually include several components. So this already gives us some degrees of freedom. If this doesn't give you enough parameters to play with, you're very welcome to include the cycling of your battery cells and all the parameters connected to this into your experiments. And latest, if you go to an experimentalist and tell him or her that you want the perfect cell chemistry and a nice cycling protocol that gives a long-living coin cell, they will look at you like this, tell you to get out of their way, because they need to get started to at least check a few of these parameters. So in our lab, we have a self-driving lab, which takes away some of these burdens and automates some of the procedures. So most of the time, people look like this. However, the next question is, what do they need me for then? If everything's automated, there is no point I'm here. This is not true, in my opinion, because we still need human researchers to design the studies, to monitor the processes, to work on complex or hard-to-automate procedures. Also, someone needs to interpret the data and draw conclusions from that. So there is still a lot of active contributions by human researchers, which is why in our study that we are presenting today, we included humans in the loop to work together with an automated lab. So we chose the following use case for our study. We wanted to improve the efficiency of formation for our coin cells, which means for us that we want to have it done in an as short time as possible without sacrificing the end of life of our batteries. So we want to have long-living cells that are formed quite fast. This brings us to a multi-objective optimization problem that has to deal with noisy parameters and noisy objective functions. And to tackle this problem, we have a project team that is composed of 2 teams located at different sites. One of the sites is Ulm, where we deal with the experimental part with the Polis map. And the second team is located in Karlsruhe and deals with all the functionalities of CADI format that we need to make this happen. So for me as an experimentalist, the point of view is the following. Our experimental workflow looks like this. Since the group of Anna Smith kindly provides us with the Polis reference materials, we can start with directly from formulating the electrolyte and pass this on to our cell assembly robot, which then automatically assembles coin cells, which we can then take to our cycler. However, these are only the physical outputs. So every single step in this procedure also gives us data that we need to handle and collect somewhere. And to do so, Helge Stein and the former group came up with Finales, which is our fast intention agnostic learning server. You don't need to remember the long version. The important thing is that this is basically our central hub for communication. So all our machines are connected to this central hub, and they provide an aggregated form of their data to Finales, which is basically interfacing a database and bringing together all the data in a single data set. However, I, as a human, am able to read JSON data structures. That's technically possible, and this is basically what is used for the communication between our machines and Finales. However, for me, it's easier to grasp the meaning of the data if it's presented in a more human-friendly way, as you can see on the right side of the slide, or if it's even represented in a graph or something like that, or if it's pre-processed. So this is where all the functionality of CADI comes into play to provide us a more human-friendly interface to all of this, additional to its functionalities of data management that it already brings with it. And this is why we included CADI in the workflow to add an additional interface to our lab and to the database that we work with. And Arnd will now explain you in more detail how the data flows between CADI format and Finales.
Okay. Thank you, Monika. I will talk now about the data flow between CADI format and Finales. But first, since we are at the Polis Conclave and we heard a lot about the highlights of Polis 1, please allow me also to highlight a little bit of what happened on the data domain within the cluster. And that is, to sum the CADI story. So we started together with Polis in 2027, and the first release of CADI was in 2017. And there the idea was to have a kind of electronic lab notebook with integrated repository function that automatizes and streamlines research data management. This worked early from scratch, and CADI has grown into an ecosystem of tools that allows to build individual ELN or individual data solutions for every institute or researcher that wants to use it. And we've been quite successful with this, especially and received quite a lot of recognition in the data domain, so much that we are now the primary research data solution that is used at DLR, for example, the largest German research institution. And there, CADI format is used, for example, to record zero gravity experiments in parabola flights or for coatings of turbine blade simulations. And of course, we are still in Polis, so the battery domain is still one of our main, main branches. We are recognized or quite active in Helmholtz and NFDI, so much that we were lucky not only to be the best software solution of the NFDI for Ing, not only in 2021 with CADI format itself, but also in 2024 with LISA, our large language model that we connected to research literature. And also, we are quite, obviously, we have a lot of users, institutions, and instances in Germany, but also beyond Germany, Europe-wide, we are the primary, the National Research Data Infrastructure of the Czech Republic. We also have users in Norway and the UK as well. So, and that is something that has come from Polis, from the nucleus of Polis, that we were able to grow from a research data management tool to a whole ecosystem for a digital research community. And luckily, or we are very happy also that last year, this year, at the beginning of this year, we were able to have our first CADI community meeting, and all of those are expert users, developers, and system administrators that, that develop and that also contribute to CADI. And we were able to have this in Ulm, so it's a kind of a homecoming for CADI as well towards Ulm for the Polis people. And with this, I want to talk a little bit about why do we need to integrate with RDM. We already saw why Finales helps us to integrate with a kind of automatized robot in a glove box line or the Polis map. And the idea basically is that we want to have an automatized interface that we can provide between data and humans. We already saw that CADI format can be an individual interface depending on what you want to have. So here the idea is now that we want to provide something, an interface between data and humans. And then on the one hand side, the challenges are that we are at different locations, one in Ulm and the other ones in Karlsruhe. And possibly when we look at the cluster, of course, we also have new members that come from Gießen. And we also want to connect methods, in this case, AI methods and also laboratory equipment in this sense. And of course, we want to also do our own research, so that's why our developments here are, in the data domain, can be defined as an AI agent that uses Bayesian optimization and automatizes a systematic study design. And here, now we come to the workflow, to the data flow between the two instances. So on the left-hand side, we have the CADI-Format in Karlsruhe. And on the right-hand side, we have Finales and the Glovebox line, the Polis map in Ulm. And within CADI-Format, we have implemented two plugins. One is the CADI Agent plugin, and another is the Finales plugin. The CADI Agent plugin is what decides, what performs in the background the Bayesian optimization. So it decides what next interesting data point to try out. I talked a little bit about that last year at the Polis Conclave, what kind of ideas are used there. But here I just want to highlight how you can use it. And then there's the Finales plugin, which communicates with Ulm in this sense. So this Finales plugin then will send a workflow request, and that workflow request will arrive in Ulm in the so-called overlord scheduler, which is part of Finales. And then, based on this workflow request, the Glovebox line will automatically execute that trial that we decided would be most interesting to try. It will perform the experiments, upload the data as seen before, and then in Finales there's also a CADI tenant which uploads data in a structured knowledge graph back to the CADI-Format as a nucleus for the Polis Data Hub. So I want to talk about two components. On the one hand side, the data interface and the human interface. I will first talk a little bit about the data interface, and after that, I will focus more on the human side of things to close the talk. On the data side, at the center of our study, we have an umbrella record. That umbrella record defines our study in the sense that we want to know how our design space looks like, what parameters we want to choose, or what we want to vary, and also what parameters we want to optimize. So in this case, we want to modify our charge rate during formation and our discharge rate during formation, and also we want to vary the number of repetitions of our formation cycles. And Monika already said this, we want to optimize our end of life, so maximize our end of life cycle number, and at the same time minimize our formation time during formation. So we have this central record that holds all of that information here in the metadata, in its metadata. Then we also need to know how we communicate with Finales. So you already saw the JSON file that Monika told you about, and we can use this JSON file as a blueprint. So this is just this JSON file uploaded into the metadata of a record, and it's stored there, and we will use it later to send requests to Finales. Then we perform Bayesian optimization with our CADI agent. We decide on our, based on our design space and optimization settings, we select individual parameters settings. So here, for example, a charge rate of 2 and a discharge rate of 1.8 and 2 repetitions of our formation cycle. Those are now known, and if you don't have a automatized Glovebox, you could now go by yourself into your lab and perform this experiment yourself and just write the resulting end of life cycle number and your formation time there. And you could also perform this study. You could also contribute to that study if you wanted to. But of course, we want to do this. Experiments automatized. So that's why, based from this base interface, we replace now those values here, or we insert those values into the blueprint, and are able now to send our request to Finalis and then request a response from Finalis back. After a few iterations, the data graph, the knowledge graph will look like this. So at the center, we have our umbrella. Around that umbrella, we have a lot of trial records. Here we have the base interface, and the individual requests that we send to Finalis are recorded here. So we have a nice circular structure. Then, after those requests are sent, they arrive in the Polis map, and we can execute the experimental workflow. So we can formulate the electrolyte, we can assemble the coin cells and cycle them and record all the data in Finalis. And Finalis will respond by sending, with a small knowledge graph that has here the workflow. That's basically the same thing as the requests that we sent. But then it will have for each cell, so here we took 4 cells in parallel for each configuration. The results of the cycling of each of those cells is stored in these records. And then, of course, some further information about assembly and transport of the cells. So that is a response from Finalis. And if we connect all of this into a big knowledge graph, so at the center we have the study, we get a really large knowledge graph that records our research over time in a very structured way. For the data flow again, the Finalis interface will then receive our response from Finalis. We will evaluate the response and extract the result metrics, which are saved in the trial back. So we go back we follow our connections back, save the results in our trial. Then we have for the end of life cycle number, we have a mean value and a standard error. And for our formation time, we have the same. And then once a new trial has been updated or has been completed, the umbrella record can be used to decide on the next trial, the next step to evaluate. So we trigger the next iteration of our sequential study. This brings me to the human interface part of our study. So how can we control and also visualize our experiment for the user, for the researcher? So I've recorded this. So this is basically the umbrella record. And there we see the entire study, as you see. So we have our charge rate during the formation, which we varied between 0.025 and 2. This charge rate was varied in the same domain. They were independent of one another. And also our formation number of repetitions of our formation cycle, we varied it between 1 and 6. And also we optimized, so we wanted to minimize our formation time and maximize our end of life cycle number. If we can now have a look at the links, so at the graph that we can see, you can see again at the center we have this umbrella that we are currently looking at, and around this we have clustered all the individual trials and the requests sent to Cardi. This is currently on a local instance because we don't want to test on the production instance. Otherwise, it would not be good for Cardi format that we may break that in the process of this prototype. You can also look at this dashboard. So there we have an overview about all running trials. So currently 3. We always run 3 trials in parallel. That's the number of completed trials. They are also recorded, so we can very quickly get an overview. And if we want to look into one running trial, trial 13, we can directly click at it and we can see, okay, it has a charge rate of 1.33 and a discharge rate of 1.25 and 1 repetition of our formation cycle. Then we have some additional plot where we, for example, see the trade-off between the different objectives. So end of life versus formation time, we can have some plots, and we can see that currently the best value is a charge rate of 1 and discharge rate of 1 and 3 repetitions, but that will likely change over time. We have some more plots that we can see, so like progress over time, and also cross-validation plots that allow us to have. And the nice thing about this in CardiFormat is everyone can build their own dashboard. You can modify this, you can change it. For example, I added now a row here, and you can now create a tile where you can then choose a JSON file. This is basically a small instructions how to create a interactive figure. Those are quite easy to create. And then you can select one of those JSON files, give it title and subtitle if you want, and then suddenly you have a plot in your record which you can use to visualize your individual projects. Okay, so components of the dashboard are the overview about the current trials, our record view, so you can quickly see how our experiment is continuing, what are the current trials and what trials have been completed. You can have a plot of the trade-off between objectives. Also, you can have a plot for the performance or for the current model behind our that is currently used to decide on the next data point. And you can see the progress, how the objective changes over time. All of those are controlled by setting tags within CardiFormat. So if you set a tag, so for example, you can set the umbrella record as active, or you can choose to send a request to Finales. That is by changing a tag in a record, and then it will automatically trigger a communication between Karlsruhe and Ulm. And it will also give you feedback through notifications on the right-hand side and progress bars. And also if something went wrong, it will also return the error. So this brings me to the end of our talk. And I would like to give you 3 take-home messages, basically. One is that our Polis map, implemented through Finales, is a really nice tool to automatize and accelerate experimental battery research from the formulation of the electrolyte to the assembly of the coin and to the cycling of the cells. Then that you can use CardiFormat to automatize research data management and integrate also AI methods such as Bayesian optimization. And both tools will serve within Polis 2 as the foundation for the battery acceleration network that you can use. And with our tools, we will help to improve the integration of the human researchers and manual tasks in those digital workflows, and also enable the use of autonomous workflows for systematic study design, and also assist researchers with data visualization and analysis. And of course, we are in Polis, so we thank the contributions from Polis, the funding from Polis, and also we would like to thank Pim Stüble, Andreas Hoffmann, and Anna Smith for providing us with the materials for running this study.